Hey there, welcome back. I am so glad that you're here. I am Jennie Hendricks, and we're going to do a little comparison shopping today. Thanks for coming back. I am so glad you're here. We're going to do a little comparison shopping today. We're going to talk about some of the distinctions between Cedar City and St. George. I get asked a lot about how do the two cities differ. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. But before we do that, remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell because we drop these videos every single Thursday. Now, Cedar City is about 40 miles-ish north of St. George. St. George is the last city in Utah before you get to the Arizona border. It's called the Arizona Strip, where you drive through a little piece of Arizona before you get to Nevada. It's kind of cool. Population in Cedar City. We've got about 36,000 people right in Cedar City. Of course, the county has closer to 50,000, but right in Cedar City area is about 36,000. St. George has 185,000 people. St. George is clearly a lot bigger than Cedar City. Now, I thought this was interesting. The median age of the population in Cedar City is 25.2 years old. Cedar City actually has one of the youngest populations in the state. Now, St. George is 33.8 years old for their median age. They're one of the oldest cities in Utah. And I gotta tell you, I think that number might actually be a little bit higher because there's a lot of snowbirds. There's a lot of retirees that go to St. George who might have their primary residence somewhere else. So I think that may not be included in that median age number for St. George. Population growth. It is no surprise to anybody that Utah as a whole, and specifically southern Utah, is just growing like crazy. We have been for a long time, and then really have had the foot on the gas pedal for the last few years. So in Cedar City, our growth since 2020 has been 9.1%. That's an increase in the population of 9.1%. St. George, 16%. St. George is actually one of the fastest growing cities in the country, not even just in Utah, but in the country. So St. George has been discovered, really popular area. Cost of living. We've talked before about the cost of living in Cedar City kind of compared to other places that people are moving from, but how does it compare to St. George? Well, the cost of living in Cedar City is about 9% below the national average. The cost of living in St. George is 5.1% higher than the national average. So it's a little bit more expensive to live in St. George versus living in Cedar City. Median household income. How does the median household income compare between these two towns? Well, in Cedar City, the median household income is about $42,000, which is a little bit below the national average, about 25% below the national average as far as household income. In St. George, the median household income is $55,000, which is 5% below the national average. But again, I need to take a deep dive into that because I think that there is more income in St. George just because of some of the part-time residents that live there who may have their income counted in a different spot where their primary residence is, but spend a lot of time in St. George. Again, there's a lot of snowbirds that like to come to St. George during the wintertime. How about unemployment? Let me just tell you, everyone is hiring. Everyone is hiring all over southern Utah. Unemployment is below 3% in Cedar City. It's at 3% in St. George. So if you need a job, you can move here and get a job. Everyone is hiring. Now let's talk about the weather. So this is one of the most distinctive differences between St. George and Cedar City. You've heard me talk about this before. Cedar City has 4 mild seasons. St. George, it's hot in St. George. Let me give you some details on that. The average temperature in July in Cedar City is about 85 degrees. The average low in July in Cedar City is about 66 degrees. The average temperature in St. George in July is over 100. It's 101. Now, St. George is consistently 100 or above for most of the summer as far as their high temperatures. Their low in July gets down around 86 or so. In December, the average high in Cedar City is only 40 degrees and the low is about 29. And in St. George, the average temperature in December for the high is 57 degrees and the low is 38 degrees. So there you go. The great thing is you're only about 40 minutes from whatever weather you like. If you are in St. George and you want to cool off, just zip up I-15, come to Cedar City, or you can even continue on to Bryan Head where it's always nice and cool up there. If you are in Cedar City and you think it might be nice to get a little bit warmer, head down to St. George and there you go. So one of the best things about living in southern Utah is the diversity in our temperatures, in our weather, in the geography, in the geology. Really cool stuff. One of the reasons that there is such a difference in the temperature between the two cities is Cedar City is about 5,800 feet above sea level. St. George is only about 2,800 feet above sea level. So the temperatures in St. George are actually going to be a lot closer to the temperatures in Las Vegas than they are the temperatures in Cedar City. Even though Cedar City and St. George are close to each other, there's such a difference in the elevation, and that is a really big factor in the difference in the temperatures. We've talked about this before too. In all of southern Utah, there's just so much to do. If you like doing things out of doors, there's tons of stuff to do. So in Cedar City, of course, we've got hiking, biking, fishing, all kinds of places to explore and things to do. You can go up to Bryan Head, you know, the hiking and biking up in Bryan Head, and of course in the wintertime, skiing, snowboarding, all of the wintertime activities. We did a video on that, so check out the Bryan Head video if you're interested in more southern Utah information. Cedar City has one golf course. It is a municipal golf course, and it is really a fun, beautiful course. That said, if you are a golfer and you want to have access to a lot of different golf courses, St. George is pretty amazing when it comes to golf courses. There's about a dozen down there and they are beautiful. They are just spectacular. Golf is one of the reasons that people come to St. George. So if you are a golfer, if you know a golfer, if you love a golfer, take your golfer to St. George. You will not be disappointed. St. George is also close to two bodies of water. There's Quail Lake and Sand Hollow Reservoir. So if you like water activities, you can kayak, you can water ski, paddle board, hang out on the beach, all kinds of water activities at Quail and Sand Hollow. Quail and Sand Hollow they're a little bit closer to St. George, but they're right in between Cedar City and St. George. So just a short drive from either city to Quail Lake or Sand Hollow Reservoir. Lots of stuff going on there. Check it out. I know the reason you're here is that you want to know about the real estate in Cedar City and St. George. So let's talk about it. I want to give you the caveat here though, because I'm making this video in summer of 2022. And as we know, we're all talking about, is there transition happening? What is going on? I'm going to give you the facts as they are right now, and the percentages relative to the two cities as far as levels of inventory, price ranges, and so forth will be pretty consistent. But the numbers, the actual numbers may change. So here we go. One of the most significant differences is just the sheer number of homes available on the market. So in Cedar City, we have 188 residential properties right now on the market. In St. George, there's 697. So you can see St. George is just that much bigger than Cedar City. Now, the median list price in Cedar City at this moment in time is $439,500. And in St. George, $699,900. So just short of $700,000 for the St. George median list price. Median sales price in Cedar City is $365,000, and the median sales price in St. George is $572,500. So you can see there's some fairly distinct differences in the real estate market between Cedar City and St. George. Between Cedar City and St. George, I have found that there's something that is a great fit for just about anyone. So let me know if you have questions on Cedar City. Let me know if you have questions on St. George. Let me know if this was a helpful video for you, if comparing the two major cities in southern Utah had value. Let me know if there's anything else that you would like me to do a video on. I'm getting some fantastic requests from some subscribers. So thank you for tuning in. I am Jennie Hendricks. We'll see you soon.